Hey everybody, and welcome to the module on web development. In this tutorial we're going to walk over HTML and how it can be used to create a web page. We're going to start off by just kind of talking about what's required to work in web development and some of the basic concepts to get started with, and we'll sort of end with a demonstration of how you can apply some of the HTML tags to start creating your first website. So to get started, web development, pretty much you don't need a whole lot. You just need consistent access to the internet. Makes sense that to learn building web pages, you could use other web pages to do that with. I suggest the 3 links here, W3 Schools. It's a very good website and has a lot of information on how to get started with HTML. And ultimately, you could spend years out here learning all the information and content that's out here. We also have the IT Web Tutorials at MGA. It's a textbook written by some of the faculty at MGA, and you'll probably see it in other courses as you move throughout the program. Should also suggest using the validator w3.org website. This will help us later on when we start building our code to make sure that we're doing it correctly and keeping it free from errors. We'll also need an up-to-date web browser. I recommend using Chrome to get started. Other browsers can work. Internet Explorer is a little bit fickle when it can come to development. So I kind of recommend to get started with Chrome. It's a pretty straightforward and easy browser to get started with. Also just suggest having a text editor. What I'm going to recommend you get started off with is one that's called Brackets. It's open source and free. It doesn't cost any money, and it runs pretty much on every platform, Windows, Mac, and Linux. So it's a good text editor to get started with, especially when working in web. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we get into the demo part. So basically, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's the language of the World Wide Web. Typically when we refer to the internet, we're referring to the physical hardware that connects all the different devices and the devices themselves that talk to each other over the internet. But the World Wide Web is typically referred to as the information within. And HTML, it's the language of that information. So without HTML, there'd be no structure to our content, and it'd be pretty difficult to read without that. Currently, we're using HTML5 specification. It was accepted in 2014. It was used in practice a little bit before that by multiple browsers, and last revised in 2017. So there's a link there to get to that. And the first line of HTML is going to be what's called the document type declaration. And that's what this is right here. This is the Doctype declaration to specify that we want to use HTML5 in our web page. Most HTML tags are going to use all HTML tags are going to use the less than and greater than symbols. Typically refer to HTML elements as using tags, and the tags themselves have the different signs. So there's a lot of different tags, and they're all used for different purposes. Looking at the W3 schools, there's going to be a little example here at the top of the page, and that's sort of the basic structure you need to get started with a web page. So that HTML, that first line there, that's the document type declaration. The HTML tag is sort of the root tag of the document itself, kind of the parent of all other tags. The head tag is used for page directives. It's not technically in the example on W3 School's site, but it's sort of implied being before the body tag. Technically, the title tag should be inside the head section. The body tag is where most of the visible content is going to be, so if we were to try to look at this page in our browser, this is a heading, this is a paragraph, that would be the information that we visibly see when we look at the page. There are a lot of tags that go in the body section to kind of format out the content for us. There's headings and paragraphs and hyperlinks. There's sort of generic containers called divisions. There's really a whole lot of tags, and most of the tags that we're going to use are going to be inside the body section. So, that's where most of these are going to be. Those are some of the common ones that you're going to find, or you're also going to find different types of tags like the unordered list. It's a structure of list items, a UL tag, an LI tag, and those are sort of nested inside of one another. So A UL tag stands for unordered list. That's a bulleted list. And an ordered list is going to be sort of like a numbered list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There's also description lists that use a couple different tags, like the DL and the data term and data definition. There's also table tags, and that's typically used to contain table data. You'll see those as a mix of TR tags, a table row tag, and a TD tag for table data. You'll also probably see some TH tags in there for table headers, and it should only be used for data. In the old school web, if you've got any previous experience with web, table was sometimes used for design layouts, and that's typically a very bad practice. So by today's standards, a table tag should only contain data. It shouldn't contain any other, shouldn't be used for design layout, basically. There's a bunch of new tags in HTML5. Again, if you had a little experience with older HTML, some of what we've covered already will look pretty familiar. In HTML5, we kind of introduced what's the concept of a semantic tag. And what that means is the tags we use kind of have a purpose. And there's a couple of the common ones listed there. And primarily we use these for search engine optimization. It really kind of helps the search engines to know, where's your navigation. If you put that in a nav tag, it'll be easy for the search engine to know, this is a navigational element in your page, and might link off to other pages that are related. Header and footer, for example, typically refer to the top and the bottom of the page, where things might be shared across multiple pages, or kind of just, the header introduces content, and the footer is kind of a conclusion or summary of content at the bottom. There's a lot of other semantic tags out there that are new with HTML5, and even some older tags that got repurposed to be more, meaningful in HTML, in the newer version of HTML5. So go out and take a look and see. They're specifically with those are the phrase elements that perhaps have a little bit of different meaning in HTML5 than they did in previous versions of HTML. And those are tags like the strong tag, emphasis, and cite, and sub, and sup. These tags are also used to format text. And to an extent, you can kind of think of almost anything that you can do in Microsoft Word, such like bolding or italicizing or underlining. You can kind of do that with some of the HTML tags. Of course, it goes much further when you get to things like cascading style sheets, CSS. That really gives you the opportunity to make a lot more changes in how things look. HTML is really just kind of a structure to provide the page with, some structure. So it's not just a bunch of gobbledygook. There's a few tags out there that aren't going to have closing tags, and it's kind of a good thing to keep those in mind. Particularly the image tag and the break tag, and the link tag. We're going to probably use those a little bit. And I like to use the old school slash here. There's a little note down here at the bottom. Technically, the slash here is not required. I'm an old school salty dog though, so I like to make sure that I include that when I'm using my coding. That way it's a little bit easier for me to recognize that the closing image tag doesn't exist. It's a singleton tag, it's a void tag. It doesn't have a closing tag. There's not a whole lot of them, but most tags are gonna have an opening and a closing tag. Last but not least, there's a lot of ways to write HTML, and to some extent there's no right, there's no wrong. The website's going to look the way it looks, whether you want it to look that way or not. There's a lot of variability, but what you do need to do is you need to make sure that you check it. So this website here, W3C Markup Service, this is going to have the ability where you can check your code, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Overall, biggest thing here is not all browsers are created equal. Browsers have gotten really smart over the recent years to fix bad HTML to the best of its ability, and sometimes you might like it better broken than if it was written right. But ultimately, if you do need to make sure that you're following the validator and you're following the specifications, because in the long term, it's not only just going to work better and be more accessible, but it's also going to maintain its life longer. Maybe the browser pushes out an update, and now all of a sudden what you thought looked good with broken code is now looking different and not good. And so just keep that in mind. Not all browsers are equal. In real life, you do want to have kind of like every browser and test against every browser with your website to make sure that they are kind of all acting the same. So for summary of the slides, pretty much find you a good cheat sheet for HTML5. Got one linked here. It'll kind of give you an idea of what the common tags are. The other one, a lot of the ones that are here in the PowerPoint slides, there's more to it. HTML gives you the structure. Validate your code early and often. If you make a lot of changes and then validate your code and see you have a lot of errors, sometimes that can be hard to fix. If you're doing a little at a time, you make a change, you check, you make a change, you check, you got a less chance of it getting really out of control on you, and kind of keep it clean. Most of the tags are going to have those less than and greater than signs, and that's a pretty good tell that HTML is being used if you see those. And there's a full linked list there to all the tags. And really, it's a memory game. At some point, you just get really familiar with the language, the things that are used very often, and after a while, it just kind of comes out. So I'm going to get started here. I'm going to make a little bit of a demo to talk about how you can get started with your first website. So down here on my desktop, I'm just going to right click and create a new folder to get started with, and we'll just call this my first website. And there's going to be nothing in it to get started, but once I create the folder, we can open up our text editor of choice. Again, I suggested that we use brackets, which is what I got here. And you can just go to File and Open Folder and try to find that folder. I created it on my desktop, so it's here, my first website. And it gave me an error, but it looks like we're set up and good to go. Once we got the folder created and we got the workspace open, we can just right click over here on the left and create us a new file. Let's call it index.htm. Most home pages, most web pages, default web pages, the first web page that you come to in a website, it's going to be probably called index.htm or default.htm or perhaps some other default file name. So index.htm, this is going to be our home page. And going back to our document here, this is where we want to get started with just a basic example. So the first line that we need to include in our code is going to be the doctype declaration, doctype HTML. That'll make sure to tell the browser that we want to use HTML5 as our specification of choice. If you were using a different version of HTML, you'd have something different up here. We're going to include that root node element, HTML, and it might be hard to catch in the video, but when I finish typing the opening tag, brackets automatically created the closing tag for me. So I'm going to move that down a little bit and create the other structure that we have here. Again, W3 Schools does not have the head tag, but typically that is used for page directives at the top, and that's where the title tag goes as well. So we'll call that my first web page. My first web page. And hit save. And we'll also include our body tag and just put in nice welcome. So this is basic structure that you need to get started. One of the good features about brackets, and again why I suggested it, is there's a little lightning bolt up here at the top right, and it's called Live Preview. So if you click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to open up a new web browser that kind of looks like Chrome. But the benefit here, and this is really the trick, is that you kind of want to have your website and your code editor sort of open at the same time so you can see them both. That way, as you come in and start working with the language, you can get an idea, you can kind of see it change in real time. So if we created an H1 tag, for welcome, it's automatically going to change it in this window for us. If you're using a different text editor that doesn't have this live preview option in it, what you would need to do is just come back to here and open this up with your browser of choice and do it this way, and kind of the same deal. You want to have your code up at the same time. And we'll put an H2 tag in here for a little bit lesser of a heading. This is my website. If we hit save, we're not really getting that auto change. We'd actually have to come over and hit refresh to see our change in the browser as we start building up our website. But that little live preview deal that comes stock with brackets, when you hit the little lightning bolt up here, this does really well to really help. This is a paragraph to start formatting out some text. You can kind of see it in real time. Trust me, this is totally going to save you some time in the long run. You're going to, in 20 years, you're really going to appreciate it for me, or you're really going to appreciate this. So a couple of heading tags there. There's a paragraph tag for us. How about a UL tag for a bullet list? So we'll call this list item 1, list item 2. If I can figure out how to type a hashtag, list item 2. If we use an OL tag, remember that was for an ordered list as opposed to an unordered list. So this would be, as we start typing that out over on the right, we're going to see that was a number 1. And rate number 2, item number 2. Yeah. I know everybody wants to start putting images in their website, no doubt. It's a very fun, it starts getting really fun when you start looking about that. So I went out and found a Nyan cat picture earlier here, and so we're going to include that in our website. In order to do that, we need to make sure that the two are in the same folder together. So if we want to create an index file here, and we want to include a picture, if they're in the same folder, then we just need to use an image tag, and we're going to set the source of that image tag to be the name of the file. And again, brackets is going to help us out a little bit. It's actually going to tell us, it's going to find that name of the file that's in the same folder. And let's also give it some alternative description text. That way someone that will know what it is if they can't actually visibly see it. So that included our image into the page. Ultimately, there's a lot of tags that you could use, and use them for different reasons. Again, the table tag is a good example. It's used for tabular data, and it might contain a table row that consists of different table data. So if we wanted to, say that we wanted to 9 to 5, we wanted to put our office hours or something like that, TR, TR, TD, TD, Monday and Tuesday, 9 to 5. It kind of created this nice little list structure over here. Remember, you can always right click and do inspect element and pick that up, or I don't remember. If you want to get a good look at how it's doing it, you could just do right click and inspect. This will bring up the inspector down here at the bottom in the web browser, and you can kind of see your structure of code and see how it's formatted. You can also take that out to a website that you just want to investigate a little bit. For example, if you want to come out to Middle Georgia's website and take a look at how things are done, it's a very advanced website. There's a lot of neat features in it. You can just kind of right click on something you find interesting, like the icon or the logo up here. Right click on it and hit inspect. You can see that there's an image tag there. Source is set. There's also an A tag, so that when you click it, you come back to the home page. You can see our body tag, our head tag. There's some HTML5 semantic tags in here. For example, there's a header tag. There's the navigation tag. There's another navigation tag. So if we right click over here on the menu and go to inspect, we'll see that. There's our A tag that takes us to a place. and it's inside of a list item tag, which is inside of a UL tag, and that is inside of a nav tag. So in a very complex website, you could have a very nested structure. That's one of the reasons why I'm kind of writing it the way I'm writing it here, is that even though this indentation and stuff really doesn't matter, you could kind of combine it all together if you really wanted to, and remove all this extra white space. But this actually might make it harder to read your code in the long term when you come back and want to make a change to this table. Whether you put it out on 5 lines or put it out on 1, it's always going to kind of look the same. It's not really going to change visually. Extra white space really doesn't matter when it comes to HTML. And what I mean by that is if maybe we just go grab a paragraph of text off of the Lorem Ipsum website, and just kind of grab this text and paste it in down here at the bottom. If we just kind of create this on new lines, like so, just add some extra spacing in here, what we're going to find in our website is that really nothing changed. So even though we have all these extra spaces and lines in here, there's no, it's not visibly showing up in the browser. We would need to come in and start adding in some new tags if we wanted to do that. So maybe we do want to kind of contain this information inside of a paragraph. So we'll put these lines of text in a paragraph, and it will separate them out. But again, even these break tags don't show up, or these line breaks don't show up. We could use the break tag itself. Remember, the break tag does not have a closing tag, so I'm going to write it this way to contain those. And we should be able to see that now we're kind of splitting it out on new lines. It's a lot of tags to play around with and learn. For example, block quote is going to put a little bit in indentation around some text that you try to give it. So let's see how it kind of indents it out like this. So HTML is fairly straightforward to get kind of playing around with it once you get an idea of how the tags work. The hardest part about it is just trying to make sure that you keep track of what you're trying to do and make sure that the validator is clean and your code is clean. I'm fairly certain I don't have any bugs in here, but it's worth a check to double check and make sure of that. So I'm going to come back to our W3C validator and go to the file upload option and choose our file. I'm going to go back to our desktop and look for our index.htm. So if we open this up and do a check, it didn't actually give us too many errors here, I guess. It kind of gave us 2. So this one is a warning, a yellow is a warning. To fix this one, it's kind of expecting us to know what language we're trying to use here. And by adding a property on the HTML tag called language for EN English, this will make sure that it's trying to interpret the page as English. This probably got thrown up because we threw in the Latin text and kind of messed it up. The other error here we can fix with a meta tag up here at the top. So inside the head section, if we set a meta tag to create this as UTF-8 and hit save, now we should be able to upload it, and hopefully we get a nice green. Our code is nice and good. If you make a mistake, and it will happen, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And you can make all kinds of different mistakes. For example, if we just kind of maybe forgot to close this paragraph tag, and maybe we forgot the greater than sign on the front of it or something like that, chances are it's going to throw us out a bug and tell us, similar to, I say that, but then it didn't. Can't even make bugs when I want to. Let's see. Let's leave that one off. Now we can see, brackets is throwing up some red. Something must be wrong here. We're missing a greater than sign. We're probably going to get an error message in the validator telling us that, sort of, we created 3 errors by missing 1 keystroke. And technically it's not really pointing at there, it's pointing at the block quote, because this is kind of where the error is occurring, as this tag was never really closed properly. Other errors can exist, you make a little typo here or there, something like that. We made a mistake up there instead. We just kind of took one keystroke off. It might see something different. Sometimes it'll lead you right to the line number. So this example, line 20, it threw us right to here where the table tag starts, and with the red that comes with brackets, we can probably see that this is related and this one should match this one. Generally speaking, the tags need to open and close in the same order. So if we wanted to come in and maybe add a strong tag for website here, or that's not actually going to work because that's a heading tag and it's already bolded. So say we want to put a strong emphasis on item number 1, strong. And again, if we had this open, let me see if we put an emphasis here on the bold, and this is going to be valid because of the way it's written. The tags open and closed in the same order. The strong tag opened, it closed before the li tag. So the validator here is probably going to come back clean for us. However, if you misnest them, for example, you accidentally tried to close the li tag before the strong tag closes, again, brackets is going to highlight it in red, kind of show it as a little bit of an error, because they don't open and close in the same order. So we need to move strong tag back to the other side of the li. And again, the validator here will hopefully point us to at least the line number where this issue is occurring. So it kind of came up and listed as 3 errors, but these 3 errors are a little bit all related. The end tag, but there were open elements. Strong was not closed when that happened. And then this one is just kind of a stray tag because it tried to fix it but couldn't. So that'll take us back green. Cool. So web is open for you. There's a lot of things that you can do. It just really takes time to build the familiarity with the language and get to know all the little nuances about it. We'll cover a lot more of it in future courses that deal with web development and web applications, and it's a good fundamental language for any IT professional to really know. Web is so ingrained to what we use every day. It really takes a lot to build all the different websites that we see. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about HTML, and hopefully you get out there and play around with HTML a little bit and see what you can do with it. Alrighty, have a good one. Bye.